Hey everybody, so I just wanted to briefly just cover the endocrine chapter actually. I'm not going to focus on respiratory right now, but I just wanted to focus on endocrine for just a second, just give you guys a quick little review. Um, and so just follow along with me, okay? So I'll just talk about endocrine for a second, right? But I did want you guys to especially look over pages 398 and 408 in your lab manual, okay? So when we're looking at all the hormones of the body, right? Excuse me, and I'll be asking you to like label this type of image, right? So we know that this is the pineal gland, right? This is going to be the pineal gland. That's going to be important for producing melatonin, right? That's going to be able to help with your sleep-wake cycles, and that's going to be within the diencephalon. So we're in the diencephalon right here, right? Of that brain stem, and it's going to compose structures such as the thalamus, the hypothalamus, the epithalamus. The pineal gland is going to be in the epithalamus, okay? And then this next structure that we're looking at right here, that's going to be the hypothalamus, right? And the hypothalamus is going to be, excuse me, important for a lot of different things in the body, right? So it's going to be, you know, your temperature centers, right? You're going to have thermal regulation there, your taste centers or your feeding centers, right? But specifically, we're going to focus on this endocrine function. So it's a neuroendocrine organ, or where it's going to be able to actually have regulatory centers in there, and it's going to help to produce those releasing and those inhibiting hormones. It's also going to be able to produce its own hormones, right? So it produces its own hormones such as oxytocin and ADH, right? It also has those regulatory hormones, right? Such as those releasing hormones. Those releasing hormones such as thyrotropin releasing hormone, right? Corticotropin releasing hormone, right? Gonadotropin releasing hormone, right? So those releasing hormones. So it has those regulatory hormones. It produces its own hormones such as oxytocin and ADH. And it also has direct control over the adrenal medulla, right? This portion right here of the adrenal glands. So when we're looking at the adrenal glands, we notice that we have in the center the medulla, right? So there's a neuron that's extending directly, right, from the hypothalamus to the adrenal medulla, right? So it exerts its direct control over the adrenal medulla. So let me talk about the creation of its own hormones such as oxytocin and ADH. Oxytocin is going to be important for milk release, as well as uterine contraction. Okay, ADH is going to help to conserve fluid volume. All right, so ADH, for example, also called vasopressin, is a hormone that gets released into the bloodstream, goes onto the kidneys, acts onto the kidneys, right? Tells the kidneys to conserve fluid volume, right? So you don't pee it out, basically. Okay, and again, these are hormones that we're talking about. Again, hormones are going to be these molecules that are released directly into the bloodstream. Okay, and they're going to go to their target tissue and have a target response. Okay, so from the hypothalamus, we also have that's intimately connected with the hypothalamus via that infundibulum is going to be the pituitary gland. Okay, and the pituitary gland is going to produce a lot of different hormones, right? Those trophic hormones. Some of them are going to be, for example, TSH, right? ACTH, right? FSH, right? LH, prolactin, right? Growth hormone, okay? And then, of course, we're also going to have the MSH. That's specifically going to be from that. If I was to draw, right? So this is the hypothalamus. This is connecting the hypothalamus via the infundibulum, right, to the pituitary gland, right? The back of it, posterior, is the neurohypophysis. The front of it is the anterior pituitary, also known as the adenohypophysis. So remember that. But this pituitary gland, the whole thing is called the hypophysis, right? The whole thing is going to be connected to this hypothalamus via this infundibulum, right? But specifically, it's this, excuse me, it's this anterior pituitary that's connected to it, these hormones via that hypothalamic hypophyseal portal system, right? So I'm going to write it over here, right? That portal system, okay? And again, we put those releasing hormones into that portal system. They go down to the portal system, tell the anterior pituitary to release certain hormones, okay? For example, TRH, thyrotropin releasing hormone, goes down the portal system, tells the anterior lobe to produce TSH, right? Thyrotropin, also known as thyroid stimulating hormone, okay? And same thing for all these other ones too, okay? So the corticotropin releasing hormone goes down, tells the anterior pituitary to release adrenocorticotropic hormone, okay? So as we continue to label, let me take that away, right? Excuse me. So we go a little bit more inferior in the body, and so we also have this thyroid gland, right? And so, oh, nope, sorry. The thyroid gland will produce hormones, the T3, T4, right? These are those thyroid hormones, and they're going to help with oxygen consumption, ATP release, and overall metabolism, basically. And it also produces calcitonin as well. And this will basically, remember, tone down the amount of calcium in the blood. A stimulus for calcitonin release is high calcium levels. If you have high calcium levels in the blood, we're going to be able to release calcitonin to basically reduce calcium levels. Okay. On the back of the thyroid gland, you have the parathyroid gland. Parathyroid gland also is important for calcium control, right? So if there's too little calcium in the body, right? Parathyroid hormone is a hormone that's going to be produced in order to raise calcium levels in the body. Okay. We also have this thymus gland right here. That's going to be in this mediastinum region, right? Directly above the heart. Right, so we would have the heart right here. Okay. So this thymus gland is going to produce those thymosin hormones, and those thymosin hormones will be able to help with the maturation of T cells. Okay. And this thymus gland is going to atrophy, after puberty. So it's going to diminish in size, okay? Go a little bit more inferior. We have these adrenal glands, right? These adrenal glands. These adrenal glands, excuse me, are going to sit directly on top of the renals or their kidneys, right? And so the adrenal glands, I kind of drew one right here, just outlining it right there. In the center, we have the medulla, but on the outside, we have the cortex, right? And it's that cortex that's going to have multiple layers. And I'm going to get into that in the next slide, actually, okay? But the adrenal cortex is going to be stimulated from that ACTH, right? Adrenocorticotropic hormone, right? And if we just write out the words, adrenocorticotropic hormone is going to go to the adrenal glands, specifically the cortex, okay? It's a tropic hormone, so it's going to tell the adrenal cortex to release its own hormones. Okay, and I'll talk about that in the next slide. We also have this dual organ right here, this pancreas. That pancreas is going to be an exocrine and endocrine organ. Exocrine function is going to function in the digestive system, where it's going to be able to produce those digestive enzymes like the carbohydrases, the lipases, the nucleases, things like that, to help to break down whatever's coming into your system. And then its endocrine function is where it has like the beta cells, the alpha cells, the delta cells, the F cells. All right, specifically I'll focus on the beta cells. Beta cells, right, will produce insulin. Alpha cells will produce glucagon, right? Insulin works to decrease blood glucose levels. Glucagon does the opposite. It works to increase blood glucose levels. All right, so when you just ate a meal, you just ate that cookie, right? Your sugar is going to go up. So insulin is going to take that sugar, take it out of the blood, and put it basically into your cells, thus decreasing the glucose in your blood. On the opposite hand, for glucagon, right, if you haven't eaten for a while, right, say for example, you've been fasting, you haven't eaten, and it's the next day, the next morning, you're probably going to be hungry, right? But you're not going to have a lot of sugar in your blood. So glucagon will be stimulated from these alpha cells that the pancreas goes to your liver, tell your liver to put some of that sugar into the blood so you can, of course, raise blood glucose levels. And we have other endocrine organs such as your gonads down here. These are your gonads. Of course, you're going to have your ovaries, right? And you're going to have your testes. Okay, ovaries will produce those hormones such as the estrogen, the progesterone, things like that. And the testes are going to produce things such as androgen binding protein as well as testosterone, okay? All right, ovaries going to produce such as estrogen and progesterone, okay? That's going to help with follicle stimulation or growth, maturation, as well as testosterone. It's going to be able to aid in sperm production. Okay, so remember these different hormones that's going to be produced. Remember these different glands, and also remember the hormones that they're going to produce. Okay. Also, I wanted you to look at the microscopic anatomy of selected endocrine tissues. Right. So, for example, we have, excuse me. We have, for example, start with the thyroid, right? So the thyroid glands, we're going to have these follicle cells, these follicular cells, right? So, for example, these T thyrocytes, these are going to be where we produce the T3, T4. And more specifically, and we'll get into this later though, but it's going to be produced in these colloids. Right, these are the colloid follicles. And this is that colloid space right there, that fluid volume space within these follicles. Okay, that's going to be that colloid. Then we have this parathyroid gland up here, and again, this is going to be important for calcium balance. Right, we're going to release parathyroid hormone in response to low blood calcium levels. But when we're looking at the parathyroid gland tissue, right, and so you can see these oxyphil cells, and you also have these parathyroid cells, okay? Down here is going to be that adrenal gland. And this is where I was going to talk about it. So we have, when we're looking at the adrenal gland, I'm going to draw it again. All right, really simple. In the middle, you have the medulla. Right? That's going to be the medulla. Okay? Where we're releasing the epinephrine, norepinephrine. And when we're looking at the cortex, right, on the outer portion, right, is going to be the capsule. Right? That's going to surround the whole cortex. This is that cortical region right here that we're looking at right here. Now this is the cortex. The most superficial layer of the cortex is going to be that zona glomerulosa. That zona glomerulosa is going to produce aldosterone. Right? Aldosterone is going to be a hormone that's really part of the RAS system. Okay? And aldosterone is going to be produced when you have low blood volume. Right, if you have, for example, low blood volume or low blood pressure. Aldosterone actually goes to the kidneys, right? And it tells the kidneys to reabsorb sodium, right? And if you reabsorb sodium, you're going to reabsorb water, okay? To maintain a proper fluid balance, okay? So your fluid balance doesn't go out, so you don't pee it out, right? So that's a mineral corticoid because it's going to be able to reabsorb minerals such as sodium. And then you have this middle layer is going to be the zona fasciculata. The zona fasciculata is going to produce those glucocorticoids such as cortisol. Right? Cortisol is going to be really important. We know this is going to be that stress hormone. Right, but this is going to be important, for example, preventing hypoglycemia, right? basically putting sugar into your bloodstream so you can use it in stressful situations. And then you have the innermost layer of the adrenal cortex, and that's going to be the zona reticularis. And that's going to be important for producing androgens. All right, so 5% of those testosterone is going to be produced here in like females. So for example, testosterone. Okay, and so remember the labeling of these as well. Okay, and that's a quick overview of the endocrine system. It's organs, okay, and the tissue.